Good morning, good afternoon, or good night, and welcome to Command Power, a channel where we discuss all things Magic the Gathering with a focus on the Commander format. And today we are reviewing one of our final batches of Dominaria United spoilers. The set is almost fully revealed and it's looking awesome. Today we have some Commander product cards and some main set cards, so without further ado, let's jump in. So we're starting with a card from the Commander part of the set, which is Historian's Boon for 3 colorless and 1 white, an enchantment. Whenever Historian's Boon or another non-token enchantment enters the battlefield under your control, create a 1/1 white soldier creature token, and whenever the final chapter ability of a saga you control triggers, create a 4/4 white angel creature token with flying and vigilance. So this card is fantastic for saga decks. Saga decks are going to want to be playing a lot of enchantress effects to draw cards off enchantments. So the fact that this is an enchantment is great. It's going to let you draw another card, it's the right type, and it's also then going to give you a 1/1 whenever you play any enchantment, including all your sagas. This is going to help you control the board and chump block while you get value from your sagas, buying you a lot of time. And of course, whenever you complete a saga, getting a 4/4 flying angel is nothing to laugh about either. It's a great addition to saga decks and might start to push them towards being a little bit viable. Next up we have Rebaran Mercenaries. For 3 colorless and 1 white, it's a creature human mercenary, 3/4 with vigilance. And it has all activated abilities of all legendary creatures you control. Woo, this is a real spicy one. I'm sure there's a lot of broken stuff that can be done here. I actually haven't thought about all the possibilities yet, but seriously, this can do all sorts of crazy things, especially in a 5-color deck where you have access to all 5 colors of legendaries. There's probably legendary creatures that untap or let other creatures untap, and in that case you can definitely find some infinite combos there with other legendaries that tap. So yeah, I think this is just begging to be broken, and it probably will be sooner or later. Next up we have Emperor Mikhail II, 1 colorless and 2 blue for a legendary creature, Merfolk 3/3. You may look at the top card of your library at any time. You may cast Merfolk spells from the top of your library, and whenever you cast a Merfolk spell, you may pay 1. If you do, create a 1/1 blue Merfolk creature token. Well, that's really nice for a Merfolk tribal deck. It's going to give you a little bit of card advantage, although it's dependent on what's on the top of your deck, but that shouldn't be too difficult to meet. And whenever you play a Merfolk, you're going to be able to pay 1 and just get another Merfolk. So that's going to add to all your synergies. It's going to work well with the new Merfolk, which lets you sacrifice Merfolk to counter spells. All these little tokens are going to help do that. This seems like a really good card for Merfolk decks. And next up we have the last card from our Defiler cycle. It's Defiler of Instinct for 2 colorless, red, creature for action. Cabo, it's a 4/4 with first strike. As an additional cost to cast red permanent spells, you may pay 2 life. Those spells cost red less to cast if you paid life this way. This effect reduces only the amount of red mana you pay. And whenever you cast a red permanent spell, Defiler of Instinct deals 1 damage to any target. This again is on the weaker side, so the blue one draws a card, the green one puts counters on all your board. This one just doesn't seem quite as good. You're just dealing 1 damage per red permanent to any target. That's just not great. The body is also not one of the best. It is 4 mana, so it's a bit cheaper than some of the others, but it's a 4 for first strike. That's not that difficult to outclass. Probably better in Standard and in other formats than in Commander, to be honest. Next up we have Silverback Elder, which is 2 colorless, green, a creature ape shaman 5/7, and whenever you cast a creature spell, choose 1. Destroy target artifact or enchantment. Look at the top 5 cards of your library. You may put a land card from among them onto the battlefield tapped. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order and gain 4 life. Holy moly, this is absolutely ridiculous. The stats on it to start off, 7 toughness is going to make it quite difficult to kill, and it's going to block all sorts of things for days, and the triggered ability is super strong. The fact that you can get rid of an artifact or enchantment with each creature you play is probably the best mode, and that in Commander is going to make this into probably a staple in mono green decks, in any creature based green deck. If that wasn't good enough though, you can also dig 5 cards deep, which means you're probably going to be able to find a land, and then it doesn't need to be a basic land either. You can just put it straight into the battlefield tapped. And if you're getting beaten down and you're kind of in trouble and need to stabilize, gaining 4 life is nothing to sneeze at either. All 3 of these modes are amazing, and there's no restrictions. You can do them multiple times a turn. You can play 2 creatures and ramp twice. You can play 2 creatures and get rid of 2 artifacts or enchantments, or you can gain 8 life, or any combination of that. This is just a ridiculous card. Next up is Activated Sleeper for 2 colorless and 1 black. A creature, Phyrexian Shapeshifter. It's a 0/0, it has flash. You may have Activated Sleeper enter the battlefield as a copy of any creature card in a graveyard that was put there from the battlefield this turn, except it's a Phyrexian in addition to its other types. So this is kind of like a clone effect, but it only works on creatures that died that turn instead of on creatures that are on the battlefield. This is a good card. Clones are always good. 3 mana is not bad. Flash means you can play during an opponent's turn. It seems fine. Roznik, Heir of Rogach. For 1 red, it's a legendary creature, Kobold Warrior, 0/1 with Battle Cry, Heroic. Whenever you cast a spell that targets Roznik, Heir of Rogach, create a 0/1 red Kobold creature token named Kobolds of Keep. Great, this is more support for that Kobold and Dragon deck. This is also going straight into my Yoshimaru deck because I pair him with Rogach, and this is a 1 mana legendary, which is exactly what that deck wants. The fact that it has Battle Cry actually makes it kind of relevant, because even if it immediately dies after attacking, it's still giving your team an entire buff. And there's probably a cool heroic deck that you can build around this as your commander. So I'm all for sweet mono red commanders, and this one definitely hits the spot. Next up we have Barrow Worm Speaker. 2 colorless, green, legendary creature, human druid. Worms you control get +2/+2 and have trample. It's a 3/3. And for 7 colorless and 1 green and tap, create a 4/4 green worm creature token. This ability costs X less to activate, where X is the greatest power among worms you control. Wow, that is a really cool commander. We've never seen a worm lord before. The fact that it gives you worms +2/+2 and trample is really nice, but the activated ability is where the real meat of the card is. The first time you do it, if you have no worms in play, it's going to cost you 8. Now that's really steep. But then the second time, it's costing you 2. That's it. Because the first worm you make is going to be a 4/4, and then it gets +2/+2, so 6/6. So the 8 minus the 6 means it's just 2 mana to activate for each subsequent worm. That is awesome. There's also, of course, a lot of cards that are worms or make worms otherwise, so without that ability. So the first time you can activate it, it can already be cheap. If you have any ways to untap it, this can be really nice. And I feel like I say this a lot, but Umbral Mantle will do the trick here. You can just untap it, and because you're in green, you probably have a lot of mana to keep paying for the untap. And then you're just making 6/6s with trample on demand, and that should end the game in short order. I think this is a really sweet commander. Greensleeves Marrow Sorcerer. For 3 colorless, 2 green, legendary creature, elemental. It has protection from planeswalkers and wizards, bit random. And then Greensleeves Marrow Sorcerer's power and toughness are each equal to the number of lands you control. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, create a 3/3 green badger creature token. Making badgers is cool. Otherwise, this is basically just another landfall commander. It's a pretty good one though. You're getting a creature each time a land comes in, and its power and toughness are equal to the land, so it's always going to be quite good. And having it in the command zone means that you probably have access to a steady number of creatures. It probably goes into the 99 of most landfall decks just as a huge threat that also makes other small threats. This seems really good. The Mana Rig. For 3 colorless, it's a legendary artifact. Whenever you cast a multicolored spell, create a tapped Power Stone token, and then XXX tap. Look at the top X cards of your library, put up to 2 of them into your hand, and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. This is a little bit awkward because the Power Stones it creates want to be used on artifact spells, but to get the Power Stones you need to be playing multicolored spells, so there's a little bit of a clash there. It's pulling you in 2 different directions, but it seems like sweet value. You can get it to work. You're going to be digging with the mana from the Power Stones. You can use it to pay for the X and dig for more cards. Yeah, I think this is a sweet card in the right deck, but it probably requires a little bit of build around. Next up we have Idyllic Beachfront, and this is a cycle of all 10 colors, allied and enemy. So we have Plains Island, you know, we have Island, Mountain, we have all of these. And it's just a tap land, but the reason I'm highlighting it is for domain decks. It's a tap land with basic types. That's really nice because it means that budget decks can have access to basic land types in a better way. And also you can have more redundancy in more ways to get your domain. So very nice to see this. Relic of Legends. For 3 colorless, it's an artifact with tap, add 1 mana of any color, and tap an untapped legendary creature you control, add 1 mana of any color. This is really good. There's an old card that people maybe aren't super aware of called Honor Worn Shaku. It lets you tap a legendary to untap it, and it's a mana rock, so kind of like this. So it can add up to 2 mana per turn, but this doesn't have that restriction of having to tap itself for the second ability. So you could actually tap 5 legendaries you control to add 5 mana. This can be a huge burst of mana in legendary decks. This should probably go in my Yoshimaru deck. Again, there's so many cards to add to Yoshimaru from this set. Don't know what to cut. But it just seems like a really strong effect. Even in the average commander deck, you're still gonna have a few legendaries lying around, so this might be finally a 3-cost mana rock that sees some play. Here we have Academy Lawmaster. For blue, a creature, human wizard. At the beginning of each player's draw step, that player may draw an additional card. If they do, spells they cast this turn cost 2 more to cast. Now this is an interesting one because it offers the opponent a trade-off. They can get a card, sure, but if they do, their stuff is going to be harder to pay. It's also kind of awkward for you sometimes, but I feel like it could be good in control decks that maybe want to skip their early game turns anyway. They're probably not going to be playing much. So it lets you make these strategic choices where you can either draw a card, but then it's going to be harder to play stuff, or, you know, it has nice tension. I kind of like this design. I think it's a really interesting card. Shadowrite Priest. For 1 colorless, 1 black, a creature, human, cleric. Other clerics you control get +1/+1. It's a 2/2. And for 3 colorless and a black, tap, sacrifice another cleric, search a library for a black creature card, put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle. Okay, zombie fans are going to be very disappointed. This is the last one in the cycle. It's a really good one though. I mean, being able to sacrifice a cleric and get any creature and just put it into play is amazing. It goes straight in the Shadowborn Apostle deck and it makes them a lot better. The creature you search doesn't even have to be a demon. You just search for the best creature in your deck and put it straight onto the battlefield. So that's awesome. This is obviously a kill on sight and it has decent stats as well. This is just a really, really solid card. The problem is clerics are not really much of a thing, but maybe with this new set we'll get a few good ones and yeah. Looks sweet. Next up we have Ursa Assembles the Titans. It's a saga for 3 colors and 2 white with read ahead. And chapter 1 says, scry 4, then you may reveal the top card of your library. If a Planeswalker card is revealed this way, put it into your hand. Chapter 2 says you may put a Planeswalker card with mana value 6 or less from your hand onto the battlefield. And chapter 3 says you may activate the loyalty abilities of Planeswalkers you control twice this turn rather than only once. This is amazing in a Super Friends deck. This is like literally the wet dream of any Super Friends deck. All 3 abilities are amazing. If you start with the first one, you get a nice bit of card advantage. Scry 4 basically guarantees that you're going to hit something you want. Then you move on to the second chapter, which lets you just get a huge turn by playing a Planeswalker for free. And finally, chapter 3, which lets you double all of your Planeswalker abilities for 1 turn, can just let you ultimate really easily with a bunch of Planeswalkers. This is really, really, really sweet. However, I think it's a little bit sneaky because there's only really 2 good modes. One mode is starting on chapter 1, and the other one is starting on chapter 3. Starting on chapter 2 is always a bit iffy because you're just cheating 1 mana on the Planeswalker, and then you have to wait a turn for chapter 3. I don't think at that point it's that good. But if you start on chapter 1 and then the second turn you get a completely free Planeswalker, that's awesome. And then on turn 3 you get the doubling ability, that's great too. And starting on chapter 3 and just getting the doubling for a great big turn is awesome. This is just a great card for those decks. Okay, next is Urtis Scorn, 1 colorless, 1 blue, instant. This spell costs blue less to cast if an opponent casts 2 or more spells this turn. Counter target spell. So if somebody's played 2 spells, this is just a better counter spell. Well, you better believe this is probably going to see play somewhere. This is going to win counter wars like it's nobody's business. So yeah, in metas where there's a lot of counter spells, this is going to be good. But in most metas, this is going to be a better counter spell most of the time, and that might just be good enough. Next we have Urtai Resurrected, 2 colorless, 1 blue and 1 black. It's a legendary creature, Phyrexian human wizard, 3/2. Flash, when Urtai enters the battlefield, choose up to 1. Counter target spell, activated ability, or triggered ability, its controller draws a card, or destroy another target creature or planeswalker, its controller draws a card. This is sweet. It covers basically all of your bases. There's almost nothing that it can't deal with. It's any spell, any activated ability, or any triggered ability, any creature, or any planeswalker. You do have to give them a card. That's a little bit awkward, and this is definitely one of those commanders that is less good as a commander. It's better in the 100 because they can't see it coming as a commander. Yes, it's repeatable removal, but they always know it's there, so little bit awkward. That being said, this is really, really sweet. Just lots of versatility and being able to deal with almost anything for 4 mana at flash speed is really good. And the last card for today is Aether Channeler, 2 colorless and 1 blue for a creature human wizard, 2/1. When it enters the battlefield, choose 1, create a 1/1 white bird creature token with flying, return another target non-land permanent to its owner's hand, or draw a card. This is fine. It's a little bit hurt by not having flash, but the versatility is really nice. And in a flicker deck in particular, I think this could be really good because there's no limit, right? You can just keep flickering in it and drawing cards or returning permanents to their owner's hands, or just making tokens if that's what you're in business for. I think this is very nice for the versatility, although the lack of flash hurts it a little bit. Alright, well those are all of our spoilers for today. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any thoughts, please be sure to let me know in the comment section below. I read all of your comments and I respond to all of them as well. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to click like and or subscribe. It really helps the channel and I really appreciate it. And until next time, take care.